What is up? You have landed on the Nook Podcast. My name is Steven, and I am so honored that you have chosen to spend some time here today. The Nook is back. We took a 1-month break, and it was really, really necessary. If you're ever considering starting a podcast, let me tell you how not to do things. This show started in February of 2021, and I went 70 straight episodes and did not take a break until March of 2022. And it was a bit of a grind. And while I enjoyed every single bit of it, there was a pace to it that was simply not sustainable. I am a one-man operation, and this is in conjunction with everything else that I have going on in my life. So, we're back. A 1-month break has been so good for me. I feel rested, I feel recharged, and I'm ready to get back at what we are going to call Season 2. I am always reachable by email. That address is steven@nookpodcast.com. That's Steven with a V at nookpodcast.com. I've always got that address posted in the show notes, along with a link to Buy Me a Coffee, which is a secure and simple way for you to financially support this show. Kicking things back off here in Season 2, I'm going to take the entire month of May and dedicate it to the makers. I'm going to be talking to various people who work in different forms of media. We're talking about people who write books, who make movies, who make TV shows, people who create things with their faith in mind. And I hope that it's also just a glance into a world that maybe you're only lightly aware of, that it will give you some keen insights into how things work in those areas, but more importantly, introduce you to these people who have got such a heart for God, such a heart to do well with the gifts and talents that they have been given, and create things that mean something, create things that might even point someone to God. To start things off this month, I'm excited to introduce you to Justen Overlander. And now he's been in Hollywood. Justen has worked in television, film, all of those worlds. Most notably, Justen was an associate producer on a little thing called The Chosen. Now, if you haven't seen this, you've probably heard about it. Maybe you're just procrastinating in watching it. Side note, you've got to see this show. It is so well done. It is such a wonderful depiction of the life of Jesus and the disciples. I cannot endorse it enough. I appreciate that Justen was willing to come on the show and not only talk about his experience in film and television, but just on what it is to be a believer in the world today. So settle in for this conversation with Justen Overlander. All right, Justen, with you, I guess I'd probably be best to start with your background. How did you get into what you're doing? And if you're comfortable with it, I would love for you to share maybe a title or three that some of my listeners may be familiar with that you've had a hand in producing.
Well, I followed the typical path of becoming an elementary school teacher and then going into the film industry. I mean, isn't that just the normal
That
route?
sounds completely perfect.
I would say the most recognizable project that I've been involved with, presumably for your listeners, is going to be The Chosen, which is the first ever multi-season series about the life of Jesus and his disciples. I was a producer on that for the first 2 seasons, and it's actually fairly new now that I have stepped away from The Chosen to do other faith-based content. I only want to do content now that is going to bring light into the world. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's all going to be puppies and bunnies, because the world has plenty of struggles in it. And the only light is Jesus and his love. And I'm trying to bring as much of that to the world as I can. So I won't go into other titles, but I'll just briefly mention that, yeah, indeed, I was an elementary school teacher for 6 years, but even then I was moonlighting as an actor. I did a lot of commercials up here in Minneapolis, and married, 3 kids, decided to uproot everybody and move out to Los Angeles. I mean, because that's where the magic happens, right? and ended up coming back tail between my legs because it didn't go quite as well as I had hoped out there. But in hindsight, yeah, one of my favorite quotes is by Steve Jobs, who at a commencement speech once said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward."
That's
And
good.
so I see now the reason that I was on that particular trajectory and why God prevented. I know this is audio, so when I do the quotes, I mean, you can see them, Stephen, as we're recording this. The listeners, I am doing air quotes right now around the word success.
Yeah.
And I do believe that God withheld success, there are those quotes again, from me from a young age because I just wasn't mature enough to handle it. And I recognize that now. And I'm not saying that I'm mature enough to handle it now because I still like heart jokes.
And how will that ever, how can we ever possibly know that?
Exactly. But I do think that now my priorities are a little different than what they were as a newlywed, a young dad. I mean, my oldest turns 17 here in a couple of weeks. And so I'm at a different stage in my life. And now it truly is. I mean, my wife and kids are my life. But even above that, it has to start with God. You know, all of this that I have, all of the gifts that I've been given are gifts from God. And if he chose to remove me from my family or remove my family from me, I would hope that I have the spiritual maturity now to just say, God, I'm going to walk with you through this valley and I'm going to trust that you are there on the other side of it and that you're here with me in it.
Right. Well, so was it
long-winded answer, I know.
No, but see, that's a great setup. Was it your involvement with commercials and seeing the production life that drew you to move to the other side of all that production life?
No, it was lack of acting opportunities for me. I have what I would define as kind of a dime a dozen look. I'm not a heartthrob leading man, certainly, but I'm also not particularly quirky. And it seems like that middle road isn't highly sought after because there's just so many of us out there. You really have to stand out in a particular way in order to really get your foot in the door. And I did a handful of fun things, you know, a couple projects that people would recognize, but nothing that really solidified my spot in quote unquote Hollywood.
And so then you decided, I'm just curious, at what rung did you dive in? Because there's in production, TV and film, there are so many different side doors, back doors that you knew somebody or somebody needed, you know, a warm body to stand behind something for a day and you get bit by the bug.
Well, that's an interesting take because when I was acting, I mean, that was my primary love. And if I were, even today, if I were to work consistently as an actor, I would probably leave aside a lot of the other things. And I've produced, I've written, I've directed, I edit. I mean, a lot of the behind the scenes videos that The Chosen released through season 1 were videos that I edited. Sound work. I mean, I can't light a scene to save my life. I'm terrible at that. I'm not great with audio on set in production. I'm decent at mixing audio, but there's a need, especially in a small market like I'm in Minneapolis. I'm back in Minneapolis now. In this small market, it's very difficult to sustain yourself as a one-title person in the film industry. It's tough to be an actor and sustain. Right. I have a family. I have to put food on the table. It's tough to be a director and sustain. In LA, they want you to not have hyphens. They want you to be, okay, you're the director. Okay, great. I know you're not going to get in my way as the cinematographer. Right. Or, you know, you're an actor. Good. Don't you dare move that table. Liability. If you hurt yourself on that table, I don't want to be responsible for that. I mean, I've been yelled at on set before legitimately by first ADs, by assistant directors for doing physical things that I'm not supposed to be doing as an actor. Right. So, I don't know if that ended. There wasn't, so long story, slightly longer. There wasn't a moment where I said, okay, I have to do this in order to sustain. It was just, I'm not getting enough acting roles, so I'm going to write myself a role. So I wrote a short film. I produced it. I directed it. Then I wrote a feature. I produced it, and I didn't direct the first feature that I did, but I did produce it and edited it. And I mean, it's just my advice to people that are wanting to get into this industry is to just work, to just do things, teach yourself, be knowledgeable enough about everything that you have mad respect for those who do it better than you.
Yeah.
And I recognize now that there are people out there that are such more advanced editors than I am. There are better directors out there. There are better producers out there. There are certainly better actors out there. But I don't know that I would ever say that I haven't worked just as hard as everybody else. And I'm reaching that age in my life now where I'm kind of, I shouldn't still be trying to scratch and claw my way into a more prominent position in this industry. And yet I feel like that's exactly what I'm doing. And it's just because I love the work. I love telling stories. And I don't want to look back in 10 years and say, well, goodness, if I would have just followed that opportunity, or if I would have just been a little bit more bold at that juncture of my life, I could have maybe done something else. And truly, it all boils down to the reason I want to do this is because I want to be able to bring light into the world through projects, but then also through the platforms that you get as a side effect of being involved in projects like this. Now, there are a handful of people that recognize my name just because it was a part of The Chosen, and I interacted a lot with our early adapter fans, especially, who know me from the show. And I just really want to be a positive influence on them, to bring light and to make their day. It sounds so trite. It sounds so hyperbolic, but that's truly what I want to do. That's all I really strive to do, is to just be a light.
Well, that you make me curious there in that as an actor, when whatever you would call your dip into the pool that has you where you are today, was it to be that storyteller, or was it more occupational first and maybe it shifted as your faith matured? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, just curious how it started and how it kind of worked to where it is now, where that is such a driving force inside you.
Oh, that's a great question. And I would say that acting for me started as therapy. It was therapeutic for me to step outside of myself. I have a family history of depression and anxiety, and was way too proud at a young age to admit that maybe I had some of those as well. And now the maturity is there that I'm recognizing, okay, yeah, that's why this happens. That's why I'm that way. It's because there is a chemical imbalance that can be remedied to some degree by pretending I'm somebody else.
Interesting.
And if I get paid for it, then it seems
all
legit.
the better.
Yeah. So really, acting was a form of therapy for me, and still continues to be. I mean, even writing, like I'm engrossed in a television pilot that I'm writing right now, and getting these ideas out onto paper is a way to exorcise the demons. Right. It's a way to just I don't know, to put into words on pen and paper or keyboard nowadays, just a way to work through some things that are going on in my heart, in my mind. And really, I'll go back to that T word. It's therapeutic.
Yeah. Well, I love that you can draw to such a specific thing like that, because I think a lot of people, and maybe it's just because I'm getting older now and young people look so much younger, that whatever they're considering as some kind of a career, it will lack a certain depth. And I love that you can identify, and you're pinging me right away. I've had a few episodes now where we've touched on some of my own bouts with depression. And I can say that even this podcast, I feel, is therapeutic. Just because I get to meet amazing people and share stories, and how inevitably something like that will be an unexpected link. I very much appreciate you sharing that. You talked about your love of story. Has that always been a core element for you, or did that develop along the way?
the love of story has always been there. My ability to articulate it and structure it has developed over the years. My very first screenplay that I wrote is terrible. I mean, it is just I say that just not even to be funny. It legitimately is a poorly written. Everything about it is
I'm
poor.
laughing because I probably will never go back and listen to my first 10 episodes of this show because I just cringe thinking about what everything felt like being a guy doing something I had never done before. So I completely understand.
But that's how we learn. That's how we grow. You can't do everything in simulation form. You can't read 20 screenplay books and then think you're going to be a great screenwriter. You read one or two and then you write one. And then you read one or two more and then you write one. And then you read more and you read screenplays. And so to start off doing a podcast, you cut your teeth. You've listened to maybe thousands of podcasts. I mean, I'm a podcast nerd. Like I love audiobook podcasts. Radio doesn't do it for me much anymore. And I just love diving into intellectual things when my brain capacity is there to handle it.
Sure.
So I'm there with you. We're always our own worst critics.
Absolutely.
So I can say that I do want to qualify though that my screenplay read by anybody today would be identified as a bad screenplay. So all that to say, what was the question again, Stephen? I don't remember. Oh, my storytelling ability.
The storytelling and how that drives you.
Yeah, but I tell you what, I hope that I'm a better storyteller in 10 years than I am today. Because I'm a better storyteller today than I was 10 years ago. It's all about growth. It's all about just progressing and learning from your mistakes, learning from others' mistakes, and really honing your craft.
Right.
And then what you do with your craft beyond that too, that's between you and God. And hopefully if you're in this creative world, your desire is to be kingdom driven and to do things, more for the glory of God than for, hey, look at my name. It's up on a poster now.
Yeah. Well, and that's something else that you kind of hit for me too, is that where are you without relationships in this world? As much as you can feel so solo at times and so on your own, I could sit here and probably name off a dozen people who were so good to me, so kind, so generous in sharing their time and talent, and letting me sponge off and trip over myself. I can imagine that at this stage in your career, you have made some invaluable relationships.
No, 100%. And the best mentors for me are the ones that don't necessarily view them as mentors. They don't view themselves as a mentor. They're just people having conversations, and we're able to kind of riff off of each other and say, oh yeah, this worked great for me. Oh man, if I had that to do all over again, I would have done it this way. Mm-hmm. And so you just... This industry is there's a lot of snake oil salesmen in it. I don't know if you're aware of that, Stephen.
Yes, I am.
If you're not careful, you can read somebody's article or listen to somebody's podcast or even pay money to take somebody's class. And if they give you a list of the 5 things you need to do to make it in this industry, run as fast as you can, because there isn't a list of 5 things you need.
Nope.
There's a list of 10,000 things that may or may not work.
Correct.
And what worked for one person is going to work the exact same way as it's going to work for somebody else. So it does come down to those relationships. And one relationship that I developed or started, I didn't even develop it, I started it maybe 10, 11 years ago now, was Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen. I had met him at a very small faith-based, it wasn't even a film festival, it was a media conference. So it was commercials and film and TV and all that stuff, but a few things in between. And he showed his movie What If, which when I saw What If, it was maybe the best faith-based film I had seen to that date. Because it wasn't quite as cheesy. Can I say cheesy without offending as a lot of the faith content can tend to be.
Correct.
And he and I hit it off real well, and we stayed connected, acquaintances. It's not like all of a sudden, I mean, in Hollywood, as soon as you text somebody, they're your best friend, right?
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
But I want to be transparent and say it's not like we became besties. We became cordial. We communicated. And when he introduced me to his dad a few years ago, I love sharing this story. He said, "This is Justen." Met him, 7-8 years ago, and he stayed in touch without being annoying. So that's another
that
thing.
That is high praise in this world.
It is. It is. And here's the other thing. I mean, people don't like the word patience. It's a difficult word for us, especially as we get more automated and more instant gratification in our world. I mean, we can't even stand in line at a grocery store without pulling out our phone and playing Candy Crush or scrolling through Facebook or what have you. And to just communicate maybe once every several months with Dallas, if that, and then all of a sudden lead to being the first person that they brought on board for The Chosen. That took 7 or 8 years. And there were some near misses. I mean, he was generous enough to share a screenplay of mine with a contact of his, and that didn't end up panning into anything, but that was a kind gesture on his part. And so he knew that I had some ability. I mean, notice how I haven't yet, and I'm no expert, Stephen. I'm not trying to come across as such, but
I would never accuse you of that, Justen.
Oh, you were quick to say that. Notice I haven't yet used the word talent. And that's intentional, because while you do need to have talent to sustain a career in this industry, you don't need it to launch it.
Right.
If you have contacts, if you have a hardworking mentality, or if you have money, oh my goodness!
Oh, sure.
If you're rich, there's nothing you can't do in this Hollywood industry.
And feel free to email me. I've got some ideas.
Boiling back down or circling back down to your point earlier, it is about the relationships and my relationship with Dallas at that point, not knowing, it's the Steve Jobs thing. I couldn't connect any dots at that point. I mean, The Chosen wasn't a glimmer of anything in Dallas's eye. I mean, he hadn't done The Shepherd yet, which was the pilot for his church that launched The Chosen. And you can't know. So I'm connected with so many people now because of the platform that The Chosen, because of the platform that God gifted me through The Chosen. I want to be really clear about that.
Sure.
There's connections, there's opportunities now, and I have full confidence that I will be producing more content here pretty soon. And I'm not one that has been financially gifted ever in my life. No, that's inaccurate. No, I am not one that has been abundantly financially, even that's tricky. See, I need to rehearse these things before I do stuff like this. I have everything I need. I have more than I need. I have much more than I deserve. And I'm not just talking about eternal life through the blood of Jesus. I'm talking about I have a house with a roof. I have a bedroom for each kid, and one that I share with my wife. My wife still chooses to share a bedroom with me. I mean, that in and of itself is a blessing. So don't misinterpret what I'm about to say, but we all know that there are people that have financial favor, people that have been making, or for however they've received it, God has gifted them with financial security that I've never quite known in my life. So now it's a matter of Christians coming together and bridging those gaps and saying, okay, you've got money, you just don't quite have the skill set to write a screenplay and to make a movie or to make a TV show. Well, I have, I think, some ability. I've certainly taught myself enough over the years. I have an innate God-given ability to do so. So let's team up here.
Right.
You're the finger, and maybe I'm the toe in the body of Christ, and let's work together, and let's come and create more content. So I think God is working through media, and I think he's bridging some of these gaps between the people that have the financial means to do what us creatives want to do, what we
Right.
creatives want to do, and then we creatives hopefully having the boldness and the audacity to go seek it out and bring more light into the world.
Well, and on that note, especially, I'd like to kind of tap into your writer category. A film that I would quickly associate with the Kendrick brothers, I would call it overt, in that there's no question the messaging, there's no question the optics on it, versus something like, and I hope this isn't apples and oranges or even apples and hubcaps, something that's more akin to a Bruce Almighty, that yes, you can say, yeah, this is a movie where suddenly a man on the street becomes God for a season. There was a lot more. I just think of some of the symbolism in Bruce Almighty when he's dejected and standing in the hallway, and on the table next to him is a golden calf. There's so many things about that were almost more clandestine, whereas opposed to, a Kendrick Brothers movie, well, here's a coach at a Christian school. There's already so much that you can assume about that. What are we as believing creators, what are we missing in getting that message out that is so critical without having to be on a soapbox, without having to come right out and say, all right, this whole thing's about Jesus and here's act one? That's probably a really long way around to essentially what's a question. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I would say that fairly recently I was I don't know, I was a little disparaging towards these hour and 20 or 120 minute sermons packaged as a feature film.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
I didn't love that approach until it finally dawned on me through relationships, friendships, people that work on those movies who are friends now. That's the goal of those movies. I used to always think, you know what? I don't want to preach to the choir. I want to bring more people into the choir. But the choir needs preaching too. I mean, the choir is as messed up as any other group on the planet. And so we need to train our own brothers and sisters to be better missionaries out there. And when I use the word missionary, I mean you're a missionary in the line at the grocery store. Yes. Why pull out your cell phone and bury your nose in it? Why not just look around without being creepy? But why not just observe what's going on around you and smile? I mean, there's been a number of times where I've been going to the checkout line and I see somebody with a cart that might even be fuller than mine, crying baby in the cart. What do I do? And I don't say this to pat myself on the back. This is not, oh, look at Justen, he's this great guy. But I've been there. Oh my goodness, I've been there with the overflowing cart, crying kid. I want that person to be able to get out of that grocery store as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to sacrifice the 5, 6, 7 minutes that it might take that cart to check out in order to bless them. And I don't do it. I don't say, listen here, you want to go in front of me? I'm doing that for you because I want you to know the love of Jesus Christ. Oh, that's not it. It's not. I hope you did. I hope you did. It's not in the words we say. It's in how we say them. And you might not convert somebody to Christianity at that moment. You might already be Christian. You don't know, but you're bringing joy. You're bringing a small blessing to their life, and you're planting this tiny little mustard seed that may or may not grow into anything in a day, a week, a month, 25 years. You can't know that. But if you're looking for these little opportunities, I think that's where we need to be better stewards of these gifts that God has given us. So all that to say, yes, our choir, we need to be preached to. And that's where those movies are very effective. And they get people passionate and they get people excited. So I want more content like that. I might do some content similar to that.
Right.
But my heart is really in making, I kind of used to say, I want to be a wolf or no, I'm sorry, I want to be a sheep in wolves clothing.
Right.
Like to put this package out there, not that I'm trying to trick people, but
No.
I would rather have, for me, this is where I think my skill set is set. I would rather have something that is a little more mainstream, but has good values without preaching. It's a husband and wife speaking lovingly to each other without explaining afterwards the scriptural references as to why they did that. I wrote, and spoiler alert, if this project gets off the ground, I want to say this. I have a moment in this television pilot I'm working on where the wife and daughter come out of the house, and there's anger. They kind of just had a blow up against each other, the dad. And the wife just walks out and says, "The sun's going down." And that's it.
See,
and
I love that.
As Christians, we know what that means, and that's that's something that convicts me because I do let the sun set while I'm angry. And to my defense, here in Minnesota, for 4 months of the year, the sun sets around 5 p.m. So it's tough sometimes to get that apology in before the sun goes down.
That's
summertime. It's a lot easier. Summertime, I've got till like 10 o'clock. Then it's a lot easier.
Yes.
But little subtleties like that, you don't have to hang a lantern on it, as we say in the screenwriting world. You don't have to really, here's the spotlight, that's the scriptural reference. There, that's
ding,
the Bible
ding, ding.
for this episode. No, it's just, this is this little subtext thing. Just a little something that, even if only 3% of the audience picks up on it, I think planting those little seeds in that way are worth it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and there, I'm also curious. You've obviously had to work with a plethora of people throughout your career. I'm going to guess that some are believers and some are not. There's probably a big difference between walking on set of, oh yeah, that's Justen, he's a good guy, versus Justen walking on with a big cross hanging around his neck, Bible under his arm. How do you differentiate? Or is it, maybe that's not even the right word. How do you position yourself as someone with that? I know you hesitated on the word talent, but someone who's got the talent, someone who has gained a position on that project, that you're coming there, you're operating in excellence. But you're a believer, and maybe it's not even a Christian film. I feel like I'm dancing around a big hill again here. Working in this business where faith-based folks are not always welcome. How's that? Maybe that's a better place to land. How has that been for you to navigate?
Well, I found on Amazon recently a halo that attaches to your collar, and I just wear it above my head, and I walk on set and I say, I'm a God guy. I'm a God guy. I'm a God guy.
Thus saith Justen.
Yeah, that's what I do. I think that's perfectly tactful and the way
right
to shepherd. I think so. I think so. That's not going to come across creepy at all.
Nope.
Here's where I everybody has their strengths, their weaknesses. And so I'm not saying that my approach is right. It just caters to my strengths. Mm-hmm. My strength is to be a connector, to be somebody that can have a conversation with somebody, even if I am completely on the other side of the religious aisle or political aisle or anything. I want to get down to the basics. I mean, I think everybody on the planet that is alive in some form or another is breathing in, breathing out. Now there are situations where, of course, I know that machines have to help. I know that I'm not trying. There's an exception to all of this, and my 9-year-old son is so great at pointing out the exception to every generalization I try to make. But
wait till he hits the teens.
Oh man, yeah, no, don't, let's not go there yet. It's really breaking down to the greatest common denominator that we have. Let's not focus on these labels. Let's not say, oh, there's Justen the Christian. There's Justen the guy that smiles. There's Justen that tells the dad jokes. Justen that even once in a while I shouldn't say once in a while, Justen, who probably more than he should, even tells an inappropriate joke. I think that I'm somebody that just likes to connect with people. I just love to see eye to eye and to listen to their story. And it's not evident in our conversation now, Stephen, I know, but I like to listen. I prefer listening to talking.
But I set you up terrible for that today, so you got nothing but grace.
We'll do another episode at some point, and we'll turn the tables. I'll interview you, so we can make sure that your audience knows as much about you as they can.
All about that.
No, it really is not focusing on the label, and it just, we can disagree on things and still love each other and still find some kind of common ground. You know, share a burger. I mean, not like literally share a burger. Germs, it's gross.
Yes.
But you know, go get a burger, and the other person can have a burger, and just talk about things that don't divide you. Talk about the things that unite you, and try to find those common connections that you have. Work to find those common connections. And instead of getting lazy and just settling in on that topic, oh, you're wrong about that. Oh my goodness. I can't. Yeah. Yep. Here's why you're wrong about that.
I'm done with you.
Just, Find a different topic. Find something else to talk about. And I can already hear people listening to this. Well, yeah, but you don't know my cousin. No, I don't know your cousin. I don't, you know, and I get it. It's tough, but here's the thing. Life is tough. It's not meant to be easy. I mean, Paul is writing all these wonderful letters to churches while he's in prison, probably barely any light to see. And he's praising God and just accepting everything that he has. And we're whining because my sister just married a Trump supporter, or my sister just married someone that voted for Biden, or you can tell I'm getting a little verklempt. I'm over, I get pretty passionate about this.
Well, and I'm just, did Dallas just go out and get the best folks for The Chosen, or did he pad that with, I mean, was there a question on the application, you know, you with Jesus or not, that if you're not, then that just means you don't have a shot at working on this show?
That couldn't be farther from the truth, because half on our set, half of the crew is probably believers, half isn't. And even the half of the crew that are believers, I mean, you've got different denominations, different faith walks, all represented there. So no, there was never, ever anything that said you have to believe in this story to work on this project. No, Dallas just wanted the best people involved, and it's way more than Dallas. You know, Dallas, Daryl Eves, his executive producer and business partner, those were the two that were responsible for bringing me on board. But I imagine that they even consulted their other early partners, the first money bringers to the project. And then, I had a hand in hiring a good chunk of the team that's working there now and training them in to do the things that I was doing. So never was it, do you believe in Jesus Christ? Can you tell me can you do the Nicene Creed?
Yep.
I mean, it was never
the four spiritual laws.
That. Yeah. And I don't, do I tend to gravitate towards fellow believers when given the opportunity? Yes, of course I do. I like that common bond. I like having that foundation that we can build upon. But am I going to shy away from somebody that doesn't have that same core value system that I have? No, of course not.
Right.
What a witnessing opportunity to just be in their presence and not to preach at them, but just to do things that Christ followers should be doing. It rubs off eventually. People learn way more by observing than by being taught.
Oh, sure. Or to be shouted at. That's the part where I really just go, come on.
Yep, 100%.
Well, did you see, I'm just curious with that, did you see just by being a guy on that film, or on that show, that didn't have any buy-in whatsoever, but maybe after working a season of it going, maybe there's something to this? I mean, did you, by chance, witness any of that happening amongst some of those crew types?
The one consistency was people that worked for The Chosen wanted to come work for The Chosen again. And these are industry professionals that work on, much bigger budgeted projects, sometimes smaller budgeted projects, but certainly secular, non-faith-based projects. And yet The Chosen is high on their list of shows that they want to work for. So would I say, and it wouldn't be my business to even say, well, so and so from this department professed their faith in Jesus on day 27 of the shoot. It's not my business necessarily to share, but there is just a genuine camaraderie on the set of The Chosen, and you get that camaraderie on a lot of sets. It's not like it's exclusive to The Chosen, but there is something working there, something that made it a little more tight-knit maybe than some other projects that I've been on.
Yeah. Well, and that's where I think, for my listeners who maybe have never had any experience like this whatsoever, just that vote, that, you know what, people really like, call a dozen people, 11 of them are going to say yes because they understand that reputation. They understand that things are going to be run well, that they're not going to be put in danger, that the crew is going to be taken care of, that there's camaraderie from every department. That stuff ranks so high. And I would even go so far as to say that's probably right up there with what you're going to be compensated with in money, is that something can pay incredibly well, but the conditions are deplorable. And you'll turn it down the next time, even if the check was big, because I just did not have a good time on that gig, and I won't go there anymore. I really appreciate you giving some insight into that, and maybe I'm just geeking about it because I remember hearing about The Chosen long before the first season came out, and was following the journey with a particular eye, because I do understand production and I just love seeing how it came together. Especially in that it was produced so well with such excellence, and to have seen how it's taken off worldwide is just phenomenal. And I just keep hoping that what is it, 7 seasons they're hoping for?
That's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Jesus dies in season 6.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Titanic, the boat went down. Sorry.
Yeah. Titanic 2.
Yes.
The return of the boat.
Under the sea. Justen, I always like to give time at the end of a conversation that if there was something that you thought we were going to talk about that we didn't, or some other thought perhaps that's come up along the way that you didn't have time for, just to leave space to say, man, if there's anything else that you'd like to throw out, have at it.
I feel like I've talked enough, so now I want to ask you a question. So Stephen, we've got a couple of minutes left. What is tell me something that God has done and as a blessing to you recently, or something that in particular moved you in a positive way.
The first thing that comes to mind, and I would attribute this to kind of not specifically, but it's easy to point to, the 2+ years that we have been in this bizarro world of lockdowns and distancing. God has brought a new depth of relationship to what I would otherwise have probably considered very casual relationships. I've found myself in such deep, gut-wrenching at times conversations with people that took things to an immeasurable level, to the point where I feel like I'm just constantly conscious of that. So I think you and I, just after this conversation, I think you and I have an incredible amount alike in that I love connecting with people. I had such an amazing experience with a young lady flying for the first time with a baby this past weekend. And she sat down, she's got middle seat. She's got a child who he couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 months old. Before she got her seatbelt buckled, she looked over at me and she said, "I am so sorry if he's loud or if he touches you." And I said, "Sweetheart, you do not have to apologize to me one bit." And the flight was fine. And I had seen how she's got bags and a baby. And then I chatted her up a little bit, and she told me she was flying for the first time and she was so nervous. And then the baby, it's like everything was piling up for her. Kid slept. He was a champ. And when we parked, I said to her, I know that you've got a lot of stuff, whatever you're comfortable with. And we were like second row from the back. I said, how about we wait for everybody to leave, and I'll just help get you out of here, because I know that this is going to be a chore for you. And she just, that look of thank you. And that's just what we did. I said, if you want to give him to me, I'd love a chance to. And he just was lit up. He's a good guy. She got her bags. I gave her back to him, and I'm thinking, this is awesome. Then I get out to the jetway. Her stroller's waiting for her. And I'm like, oh, hold on. I said, why don't you give him to me again? And she turned around and she saw me, and there was no hesitation now. It was like, boom, here. Talked to him, trying to teach him how to fist bump. And she got her stroller set up and her bags on, and she turned around and just kind of had this, And I said, how long's your layover? And she said, about 3 hours. I said, good. You don't have to run anywhere. Get situated. Go get yourself something to eat and just relax. But you're doing well. And she just thanked me again. And I just walked away from that moment of, just like you said, I didn't have to stand there and say, well, ma'am, I did this because of Jesus. It's like, no, it was such an honor to help her when she was having such a, you could see her shoulders look like they were going to touch over the top of her head. And I had such a wonderful time serving her. And it's like what you were talking about. Get out of your phone, just be looking around. There's probably somebody you can add value to their day. And that, since that just happened for me, I was just like, God, that was awesome.
Oh, brother, I can't tell you how much I love hearing that. I mean, I'm just always conscious of trying to be the highlight of somebody else's day, and
that's
were
a really good way to put that. I will not forget that statement right there. Yeah.
You were her highlight. And now here's something else. Now when I'm telling people, hey, listen to this podcast I did, now I can say, make sure you listen to the end, because you're not going to want to miss the awesome story at the end. And they're going to think I'm talking about me, my story, but it's really about you, man. So that was tremendous. That was awesome. I'm so glad that you shared that. I didn't mean to cut you off guard, but you had it right there.
That was fun that you turned the tables on me. I won't lie. God has absolutely blessed every single episode that I have done to the point where I've got phone numbers now. I mean, I could literally call so many people that I just reached out to and said, hey, would you please do my podcast? I have my ideas coming in, and it always seems like going out, it was exponentially bigger than I could have ever expected. This, no exception. I cannot thank you enough for being willing to open up to a guy that you literally met 54 minutes ago and make a great connection like this.
It's about relationships, and somebody hearing this and recognizing that they need to do something with a particular relationship of theirs. That's what it's all about.
If you are the Instagram type, please give Justen a follow. His feed is entertaining and encouraging, and I've got a link for that in the show notes. Maybe drop him a note and mention that you heard him here on the Nook Podcast. Please take 30 seconds and make sure that you are following the Nook Podcast on your favorite podcast app. A, you don't want to miss any of the great releases that are coming up, and B, it really does help spread the word about the content here. Thank you so much for listening today, and I will catch you here next time in the Nook.
The Nook Podcast is a production of Sozo Digital Media.